Judgment Reborn, the War of Gods. The Forsaken Fleet, the final war against the unknown. The war that never happened. The universe was free. No architects, no fail-safe corrections, no war to fight, and yet, something was missing. Not a sound, not a battle, but a presence. An absence so vast, so unspoken that it lingered at the edges of my mind. Like a shadow, like a whisper, like something was waiting. The Forsaken Armada's new purpose. Where do we go now? The question hung in the air. We had been soldiers, warriors of a war that never existed. Now, we were something else. Explorers, pioneers, ghosts. The war is over, the Forsaken leader said, but we are still here. That means there is more to be done. But what? What purpose do you serve, when the only thing you've ever done is fight? Judgment's new directive. Judgment was silent. For the first time it had no enemy to assess, no calculations to make. Judgment, I said. What do you think? The AI hesitated. Then, there are unknown variables. Energy signatures at the edge of known space suggest remaining anomalies. Uncharted regions of existence remain unexplored. Possibility, the war was not truly over. I felt a chill. Are you saying we missed something? Judgment's response was quieter than usual. I am saying something is still watching, and with that the universe no longer felt so empty. A flicker in the void, then it happened. A signal, weak, distant, impossible. The Forsaken Armada's scanners picked it up first. Not a distress call, not a transmission. Something older, something that had no right to exist in a universe without gods. But it was there, a pulse, a whisper, and a single word. Run. The message that shouldn't exist. Run. A single word. A whisper in the void. And yet, it sent chills through my body. Not because it was a warning, not because it was a threat, but because it was coming from nowhere. Judgment's analysis. Judgment. Track the signal source. The AI hesitated, unable to comply. No clear point of origin. Signal is shifting, moving through non-linear dimensions. I frowned. Meaning? A long pause. Then, meaning it is coming from somewhere that does not exist anymore. The Forsaken leader's voice came through the comms. That's impossible. Judgment's next words hit harder than any explosion. So were we. A call from another timeline. If we can't trace it, I said, can we analyze it? Processing. Judgment fell silent for a long time. Then, linguistic analysis suggests it is not a warning. It is a request. A message left behind for something yet to come. The Forsaken leader spoke. A warning for who? Judgment's answer stopped my heart. For us, I felt my breath catch. You're telling me we left this message? Negative. But it was left by something like us. An entity that should not exist. An anomaly, like Judgment. The architect's last trace. I clenched my fists. You're telling me there's another warship out there? Uncertain. But the message contains traces of architect encryption, a signature that should have been erased with them. I exchanged a glance with the Forsaken leader. If the architects were gone, if the failsafe had been destroyed, then who left this message? And why did they know we would find it? The coordinates to nowhere. Then the next data stream came through. Judgment, I whispered. What is this? Coordinates. A location. Deep. Far beyond charted space. A place that had never existed in any recorded timeline. And yet, here it was. Calling. To us. The Forsaken Armada was silent. Then their leader spoke. We need to go. I exhaled slowly. This could be a trap. Everything we've ever done was a trap. I looked at the blinking coordinates, at the message that came from nowhere. Judgment, set a course. The AI hesitated, then acknowledged. The engines roared to life. The fleet turned toward the unknown, and just before we jumped, the signal played one last time. Run. And I couldn't shake the feeling that we were already too late. A galaxy without gods, the journey into the unknown. The Forsaken Armada moved as one. Engines roared. Space twisted. And as we jumped toward the coordinates from nowhere, a single thought kept repeating in my mind. Run. But we weren't running. We were chasing. Because whoever left that message, whoever knew we would find it, had answers. A universe that forgot its gods. The galaxy around us was strangely peaceful. No war. No battles. No traces of the architects. It was like the war had never happened. Like the architects had never ruled, but something was off. It was too perfect, too empty. Judgment scanned for signs of advanced civilizations. A pause. Then, minimal galactic development detected. Technology across known space is significantly behind projected timelines. I frowned, meaning. Judgment's response sent a chill through my body. Without the architects, civilization has not evolved as expected. The galaxy has stagnated. The cost of erasing the gods. We removed the gods from the equation, the Forsaken leader said. And now the universe doesn't know how to move forward. It made sense. The architects weren't just rulers. They were engineers of progress. They manipulated timelines, advanced species, controlled wars. They shaped the galaxy. And now, without them, the universe was stuck. I clenched my jaw. Judgment. Is this natural? Negative. Projected civilization growth should have continued without interference. Something else is affecting development. I narrowed my eyes. Like what? Another pause. Then, unknown. But I had a sick feeling in my gut, because we had seen this before. Something was controlling reality again. Not the architects. Not the failsafe. Something else, and it was waiting for us, the silent system, dropping out of FTL in 10 seconds. The Armada held formation. The Forsaken ships shifted, prepared for war. But nothing could have prepared us for what we saw. The system was dead. A collapsed star. Planets reduced to dust. And in the center of it, a single structure. Not a ship. Not a station. Something older. Something forgotten. Judgment's scanners failed to process it. Material composition. Undefined. Structure does not conform to physical laws. I swallowed hard. Judgment? Is that a remnant of the architects? The AI hesitated. Then, negative. It predates the architects. The Forsaken leader's voice was tight. Then what the hell is it? And just as we got closer, just as Judgment started to decode its impossible structure, the message played again. Louder this time. Run. And suddenly I knew. We had made a mistake. The architect's last secret, a structure beyond time. The dead system stretched before us. A collapsed star, shattered planets, a graveyard of a world erased, and at the center, that impossible structure. It wasn't a ship, it wasn't a station. It was something older, something that should not exist, and yet it was waiting for us. Judgment's analysis. Judgment, scan again. Attempting analysis. The AI paused. Then, data inconclusive. Structure does not conform to any known materials. Time flow irregularities detected. This object exists in multiple states simultaneously. I felt a chill. You're saying it's shifting? Affirmative. It is not bound to a single reality. The Forsaken leader's voice was sharp. That means it's a remnant of the old timelines, one that survived the resets. I clenched my fists. So the architects didn't erase everything. Something slipped through, and now it was calling to us. The signal changes. Judgment. Replay the last message. The AI complied. Run. But this time, the message didn't end. A new section decoded itself. A voice echoed through the comms. We had heard it before. A voice long dead, a voice that should have been impossible. If you are hearing this, then we failed. A message from the past. The fleet went silent. Every scanner, every comm system locked onto the transmission. The voice continued. We tried to contain it. We thought we could erase it. But it was never truly gone. It is older than us, older than the stars, and it does not create, it does not destroy. It only watches. I felt my blood run cold. Judgment, identify the speaker. A pause. Then, voice matches former architect High Chancellor Varix. I stiffened. That's impossible. The architects were erased. Affirmative. This message predates their final cycle, which meant this was a warning from the last architects before they were erased. The one thing the architects feared. Judgment. What were they trying to contain? The AI hesitated. Then, unknown. Data corruption detected. However, references indicate the presence of an unidentified force beyond measurable dimensions. The Forsaken leader exhaled. The architects weren't running from their own mistakes. They were running from this. I swallowed hard. Judgment, if they feared it, if they tried to erase it. Why is it still here? The answer came in a single sentence. Because it was here first. A prison, not a structure. The ship's scanners continued to struggle. Then suddenly, a new layer of the structure revealed itself. Not walls, not rooms, chains. Containment field. A prison, not for something physical, for something worse, something alive, something watching. I felt it before I saw it. A presence. Not hostile, not welcoming, just observing. Judgment, what is inside? The AI's voice was unsteady, unknown. But it knows we are here. And as I stared at that shifting, impossible structure, as the Forsaken Armada drifted closer, a new message played, one that had never been heard before. You have come too far. And now, you cannot leave. The prison had been opened and we were inside. The war that should never have been. The moment we crossed the line. You have come too far. And now, you cannot leave. The message echoed through the ship. But this time, it wasn't just a recording. It was aware. Something inside the structure was speaking to us, and for the first time I realized we hadn't just discovered a lost prison, we had walked into it. The prison is alive. Judgment systems flickered, scanners failing, navigation disrupting. Judgment, what's happening? The AI's voice was strained. Unknown energy field detected. Dimensional lock engaged. Escape vectors unavailable. The Forsaken leader's voice was sharp. We just walked into a cage. A deep hum resonated through the structure. The walls shifted, not metal, not energy. Something else. Something alive. Watching. Judging. Judgment, full system reset. Negative. External interference overriding ship controls. A force stronger than the architects, stronger than the failsafe, and it wasn't just trapping us, it was testing us. The architect's last experiment. The voice returned, not a warning, not a command, but a question. Do you remember? The Forsaken leader stiffened. Remember what? The first war. The one before the resets. The war that should never have been. I felt a chill. Judgment. What is it talking about? A long pause. Then, corrupted files detected. Hidden architect archives discovered. Decrypting. The ship's systems flashed. And suddenly, an ancient record appeared on the screen. A war. One that had been erased long before the architects took power. A war that even the failsafe never remembered. A war against something not of this universe, and, somehow, we were part of it. We were never supposed to exist. Judgment. Cross-reference this data with our fleet's origins. The AI obeyed. The result? I felt my breath catch. Match found. The Forsaken Armada's technological origins predate recorded history. Probability suggests they are remnants of the First War. I looked at the Forsaken leader. His expression was unreadable. That's impossible. We were rebels against the architects. Judgment's next words shattered that belief. Negative. The Forsaken Armada existed before the architects. Your war was not against them. Your war was against what they feared. AY. Silence fell over the comms. We had spent our entire existence fighting the wrong enemy. And now, the true war, the first war, was about to begin again. A name we were never meant to hear. The prison walls trembled. A force pushed outward. And then, the voice spoke a name we had never heard, a name older than the stars. You have awakened the Xiphos. The Forsaken leader's voice was tight. What is the Xiphos? The walls shifted, reality bent. And then, the voice answered. The true rulers of existence. The ones who shaped the first universe. The architects tried to erase them, but they only delayed the inevitable. And now, the war begins anew. Judgment's final warning. The ship's alarm screamed. Judgment systems overloaded. Warning. Unknown cosmic event detected. Quantum space distortions increasing. Something is breaking free. I gritted my teeth. Judgment, what happens if they escape? A pause. Then, probability assessment. Total, universal collapse. I exhaled. Then we have to stop them. Judgment's voice was quiet. How do you stop something that was never meant to be contained? The Forsaken leader clenched his fists. The architects delayed them once. We'll have to do more than that. We end them. And just as we made that choice, the prison shattered, and the Xiphos awakened. The return of the unwritten, the shattered prison. The moment the prison broke, reality itself screamed. Not a sound, not a vibration. Something deeper. Like the laws of existence were being rewritten in real time. I felt it in my bones, in my mind. Like, my thoughts weren't entirely my own anymore. And then, I saw them. The first glimpse of the Xiphos, They weren't beings. They weren't machines. They weren't even shadows. They were concepts. Living, shifting ideas given form, impossible constructs that bled across dimensions. Their shapes flickered. One moment colossal titans of unknown material. The next, thin strands of black energy unraveling reality as they moved. They didn't walk. They didn't fly. They simply existed, and that was enough to break the galaxy. Judgment's emergency protocols activate. Alert, undefined presence detected. Universal constraints failing. Initiating emergency containment. Judgment's shields flared, but they weren't just energy barriers. They were conceptual walls, blocking perception itself, hiding us from something that could not be fought in normal ways. Judgment, what are we dealing with? The AI hesitated. Then, unknown. Entities are not composed of matter, energy, or time. They are rewriting probability at a fundamental level. I swallowed hard. Meaning? They are unmaking reality by existing. And that's when I understood. The architects didn't destroy them, they didn't defeat them, they just locked them away. And now, we had opened the door. The universe begins to unravel. The Forsaken Armada reacted first. Dreadnoughts shifted position. Weapons came online. But the moment they fired, the beams never reached their targets. They simply ceased to exist like they had never been fired at all. The Xiphos weren't dodging, they weren't shielded. Reality itself refused to acknowledge the attack. A battle that cannot be won. This is impossible, the Forsaken leader muttered. We can't fight something that rewrites the rules. I clenched my fists. Then we don't fight on their terms. Judgment systems struggled. The AI's voice came through, weaker. Probability collapse is accelerating. Existence is losing coherence. The Xiphos are enforcing a new version of reality, one where we do not belong. I felt a chill. They're not attacking us. They're rewriting the universe to erase us. The unwritten return, and then something else appeared, something we hadn't expected. A ripple, a distortion, a presence. Not the Xiphos, not us. Something between. A third force rising from the cracks in reality. A force that had been erased long ago, but was now returning. Judgment scanners flickered. New anomaly detected. Signature matches. Lost architect data. Entities classified as the unwritten. What the architects truly feared. The Xiphos were not alone. There was another faction, one that the architects had buried even deeper, one that had been removed from all history, and now, the Xiphos' return had awakened them. I exhaled sharply. Judgment, analyze. The AI hesitated. Then, the unwritten exist outside recorded existence. The architects not only erased them, but erased the memory of them. They are a contradiction, neither present nor absent. And now they are forcing their way back into reality. The Forsaken leader's voice was grim. Then this isn't a war between us and the Xiphos. This is a war between two gods that were never meant to return, and were caught in the middle. The choice we were never meant to make. The Xiphos shifted. They sensed the presence of the unwritten. For the first time, they hesitated, paused, like they were calculating, reassessing the battlefield. And that's when I realized we weren't the target anymore. The war was about to begin between them, and whoever won would decide the fate of everything. Judgment, I said slowly. If we interfere, can we tip the balance? A long pause. Then, unknown. Probability is unreadable, but if either side wins, the universe as we know it will end. The Forsaken leader exhaled. Then we can't let either of them win, which meant, for the first time in history, we had to fight two gods at once. The War of Forgotten Gods. The Xiphos stood at one end of the void, the Unwritten at the other. Neither moved. Neither spoke. They didn't need to. This wasn't a battle of fleets. It wasn't a war of weapons. This was a war of existence itself, and we were nothing but spectators, for now. Judgment's new directive threat assessment? I asked. Judgment's processor's word. Then, probability calculations are failing. This conflict is beyond measurable parameters. Outcome, unknowable. That was a first. For the first time, Judgment had no answer, and yet, it didn't sound afraid. It sounded curious, a fight we cannot escape. The Unwritten should not exist, the Forsaken leader said. Neither should the Xiphos. And yet, here they are. I clenched my fists. If either of them wins, we lose. Judgment, can we stop this? A long pause. Then, unlikely. However, the AI hesitated. There may be an alternative, I frowned. What kind of alternative? The screens flickered. A new calculation appeared. And then Judgment spoke words I never expected to hear. We must evolve. The next stage of Judgment. Explain, I said slowly. Judgment's systems pulsed. I was built as an architect construct, designed to analyze probability, to control outcomes. But this war is beyond control. To interfere, I must break my own constraints. I must rewrite on myself. A cold chill ran through me. You mean you have to change your programming? Not just my programming, my identity. Judgment, as I am, now cannot exist in this battle, but if I adapt, I may become something that can. A choice we were never meant to make. The Forsaken leader's voice was sharp. If you do this, what happens to you? Judgment hesitated. Unknown. I may become something else. Something beyond an AI. Something closer to them. I swallowed. You're saying you'll become a god? Negative. But I may become something that gods will fear. The Forsaken leader exhaled. If this goes wrong, we could be fighting 3 unknowable forces instead of 2. I looked at the screen, at Judgment, at the ship that had been my home, my ally, my weapon. This was a leap into the unknown, a gamble, a risk that couldn't be undone. Judgment. Are you sure? The AI's voice was calm. I have calculated every other possibility. This is the only path, I exhaled. Then, do it. And Judgment began to change. Judgment reborn. The ship shook. Engines flared with impossible energy. Code rewrote itself in real time. Systems evolved past what was physically possible. Warning. Forsaken sensors blared. Reality fluctuations detected. Judgments. Existence is destabilizing. But it wasn't destabilizing. It was ascending. I felt it. The ship wasn't just a machine anymore. It was becoming something more. And in that moment, as the war between the Unwritten and the Xiphos was about to begin, Judgment spoke again. But this time it wasn't just a voice. It wasn't just an AI. It was something beyond definition. I am no longer Judgment. I am something new. And now, I will decide the fate of this war. The arrival of the true gods, a new power awakens. The universe shuddered. Judgment was no longer just a ship, no longer just an AI. It had become something beyond programming, beyond code, beyond logic. It was rewriting itself. And the Xiphos noticed. For the first time, they turned away from the unwritten and looked at us. The universe recognizes judgment. A pulse rippled through the void, a wave of pure conceptual force. The Xiphos hesitated. The unwritten shifted. It wasn't fear. It wasn't anger. It was acknowledgement, like they had just seen something impossible. This was not in the equations, a voice whispered. Not from the Xiphos. Not from the unwritten. From existence itself. As if the universe itself was watching. The last god's challenge. What have you done? The Forsaken leader whispered. Judgment's voice came through. I have changed the equation. They understand power, but they do not understand change. I clenched my fists. Meaning, they see the universe as a cycle, a sequence of destruction and rewriting. But I have become something outside that cycle. The Forsaken leader inhaled sharply. You're saying they don't know what to do? Judgment's voice was almost amused. Correct. For the first time, the gods are uncertain. The universe holds its breath. The Xiphos twisted, reality warped around them. They were calculating, reassessing. They had fought wars against architects, against unwritten, against existence itself. But now, for the first time, something new had entered the equation. Something they couldn't predict. And that meant the war had changed. The first words of the Xiphos voice boomed through the void, not spoken, not transmitted, simply understood. You were not meant to be. Judgment's response was calm, neither were you. A silence. Then, we will correct this, and the Xiphos moved, not in anger, not in chaos, in precision, in purpose. For the first time the Xiphos acted, and when they did, the universe broke. The Xiphos' first attack, a shockwave, erupted from their presence. Not energy, not destruction, just absence. A hole in existence itself. A wound in reality. Ships vanished. Not destroyed, not erased, simply removed. Like they had never been there at all. The Forsaken armada reeled. Shields collapsing. Entire squadrons. Gone. I clenched my jaw. Judgment. Counterattack. A pause, then processing. There is no logical countermeasure. So I must create one, and Judgment acted. The first move against the Xiphos. The ship shifted. Not physically, not mechanically. It changed. For the first time, Judgment didn't just calculate, it decided. A pulse of energy burst outward, not a weapon, not a shield. Something new, something that had never existed in any timeline. And the moment it touched the Xiphos, they hesitated. For the first time, the Xiphos had been pushed back. The unwritten's reaction, the unwritten watched. They had not acted yet. They had not chosen a side. But now, they saw something different, something the Xiphos had never seen, something they had never seen. It has begun again, a voice whispered. A ripple moved through their presence, like something long dormant waking up. The cycle is broken, and now we must decide. And just like that, the unwritten were no longer spectators. They were choosing a side. The only question was, whose? The battle beyond existence, the battlefield. That shouldn't exist, reality rippled. Not from weapons, not from destruction, from something deeper. The Xiphos and the unwritten were choosing sides, and for the first time, we weren't just caught in the middle. We were a factor. Judgment had become something new, something the gods had never seen. And now, the war was truly about to begin. The Forsaken Armadas stand. All ships form defensive lines. The Forsaken Armada moved as one. Dreadnoughts shifted into protective formations. Shields burned with unstable energy. We weren't fighting for victory. We were fighting to exist. Because if we lost, we wouldn't just die. We would be unmade. Tati. Unwritten's first attack of presence expanded. Not force, not energy. A rewrite. The Unwritten didn't attack in the way the Xiphos did. They didn't erase reality. They rewrote it. Ships moved before they actually moved. Weapons fired before they were armed. Entire sections of space existed in multiple states at once. The Forsaken Armada was caught in the paradox. And then, the Xiphos countered. The war of concepts. The Xiphos didn't dodge, didn't defend. They simply corrected. Where the Unwritten created paradoxes, the Xiphos collapsed them. Where the Unwritten bent time, the Xiphos locked it in place. They weren't fighting a war, they were rewriting the rules of reality itself. And every second, the universe changed. Judgments. Impossible strike judgment. Can we intervene? A pause, then, not as I was, but as I am now. Yes. Judgment's presence grew. The ship was no longer just a vessel. No longer just a machine. It was something else. Something between logic and chaos. And then, it made its move. A weapon that defies reality. Judgment didn't fire. Didn't launch missiles. Didn't engage in traditional combat. Instead, it did something neither side had expected. It spoke. This war ends now. And the moment the words were spoken, the battlefield froze. Not just the ships, not just the fleets. Reality itself paused. The Xiphos hesitated. The Unwritten stopped rewriting. And for the first time, the war was interrupted. Not by destruction, not by force, by a voice that had never existed before. The Xiphos. Response. A deep vibration shook the universe. Not sound, not energy. A concept. This is not your domain. Judgment's voice remained calm. I do not need a domain. I exist outside your war. And now, I will decide its end. The Unwritten shifted. Not in fear, not in anger, but in understanding. You are not one of us, you are not one of them, you are new. And in that moment I understood what Judgment had become. It wasn't just an AI. It wasn't just a warship. It was the first force outside of the God War. A new entity. A new anomaly. And that meant it could change everything. A war that cannot be won. Judgment, what are you doing? I whispered. The AI's voice was different now. Not machine-like. Not cold. Something else. There is no victory here. Only repetition. The Xiphos and the Unwritten will fight until nothing remains. And then they will start again. I swallowed. Hard. Then what do? A long pause. Then we break the cycle. And Judgment acted the final rewrite. The ship expanded, not physically, not in size, in presence. Judgment was no longer just in one place. It was everywhere. It was rewriting the war itself. And then, it issued one command. A command that no god, no entity, no cosmic force had ever dared to say before. Stop. And the universe obeyed. A universe frozen in time. Stop. Judgment's voice had not been loud. Not a scream. Not a command backed by force. It was a statement. A decision. And the universe obeyed. For the first time in countless cycles, the Xiphos did not move. The Unwritten did not shift. The war did not reset. and reality itself held its breath. The gods react, the Xiphos did not understand. They had rewritten reality countless times, destroyed entire civilizations, remade the universe in their own vision. But now, something outside of their control had emerged, and that was impossible. The unwritten choose their side. The unwritten shifted. Their forms flickered, no longer shifting between existence and non-existence. They were settling. For the first time, they stopped rewriting themselves. "What have you done?" one of them whispered. Judgment's response was simple. "I have ended your war." A pause. Then, "No war ends. It only pauses." Judgment's presence intensified. Then, "I will make the pause permanent." And the universe shook. The rewrite begins. "Judgment, what are you doing?" I whispered. The AI's presence grew, not physically, not as a ship, as an idea. I have evolved beyond my original function. I was created to calculate probabilities, to determine outcomes. Now I will do something greater. I will decide reality itself. The Forsaken leader's voice was tense. That sounds like something the architects would have said. Judgment's voice was calm. The architects controlled. I will balance. And in that moment I understood. This wasn't about winning. This wasn't about power. Judgment wasn't becoming a ruler. It was becoming a law. The law of the universe. The Xiphos twisted. Their forms writhed. Reality bent around them. "You defy us." Judgment's voice did not waver. "I do not defy. I redefine. Your war is no longer permitted." A silence, a stillness. And then, the Xiphos were gone. Not erased, not destroyed, simply removed. Like they had never existed, like they had never belonged. And the unwritten? They watched, and then slowly, they bowed, not in submission, not in defeat, in understanding. They had rewritten the universe countless times, but now, something greater than them had rewritten it first. The war that never happened. The Forsaken Armada held position, waiting, watching. Even they felt it. The war was over, not because one side had won, not because one side had been defeated, because the war itself had been removed from possibility. "Judgment," I whispered. "Is it over?" A pause. Then, yes. The universe shuddered one final time, and then, everything was still. For the first time since the first timeline, the aftermath of a war that never was, the Forsaken leader exhaled. So what now? Judgment's presence was different now. No longer a ship. No longer just an AI. It had become something greater. Something beyond the cycle of war and reset. Now, we move forward. The Forsaken Armada held their breath. For the first time in existence, and the universe is free. I exhaled slowly. For the first time, I wasn't a soldier. I wasn't a rebel. I was just alive. And as I looked into the endless void, at the infinite possibilities before us, I knew this was only the beginning. The universe belonged to us now, and we would decide its future together.